operating procedure.
My name's Barry Dempsey.
I'm Henry Labonta.
My name is Jeff Kleiser.
I'm Joel Hynek, visual effects supervisor for many, many years.
Matt Elson is my name.
My name is Terry Craig. Hi, my name is Greg Panos.
Hi, so I'm Paul DeBevic.
So my name is Robert Mint.
Hi, my name is Joshua Pines.
We were pioneers, us old guys. And Ed always had a great sense of humor. So I got to give it to Ed for keeping it fun. Because as hard as it was and the hours we worked, Ed would tell the worst jokes, but his jokes were so bad, they were actually good. They went beyond that level of like, it's bad, you don't want to hear it. It's so bad, he was good at being bad, and it made it funny.
We all went to the movie theater the night that it was first going to be shown, the Columbia logo, and we were all brimming with excitement, but Ed just couldn't hold himself back. When the logo came on, he stood up and said, "I did that!" And we all applauded just...
Well, there are two important things in computer graphics. They're equal. One of them is the computer, and the other is the graphics. And that's really all I have to say.
All right, so we got Jay Teitzel here and his lovely wife Ariana. So, what did you do on Star Wars, Jay?
Well, John Wash and Dan O'Bannon and I were responsible for in the credits called computer displays, but they were all drawn in traditional animation technology made to look like computers because the computers did not exist in 1977 for general use in filmmaking. The highest technology we ever got was at Scanimate, where we used analog computer technology.
Graphics for the Rebel fighters and for the Imperials, because it was George's direction that the Rebels should be kind of down and dirty and very gritty, and the Imperial fighters should be state-of-the-art, very cold, calculating.
You guys did traditional animation that looked like it was CGI, right?
Larry Cuba should be here today. This is a PvP 11. There's a guy here from the school who got the equipment when the school got rid of it. He's got it working. Oh my God!
Eventually, I became a sequence supervisor at a small company called Industrial Light and Magic, and my claims to fame at Industrial Light and Magic were that if any of you saw The Mummy, I was the guy who supervised the scarabs. If any of you have seen Galaxy Quest, I supervised the rock monster.
By Grabthar's hammer.
By Grabthar's hammer. What a savings.
I think I genuinely thought that CGI involved a lot of people just sitting at computers exclusively, not so much getting up with the kind of like bendy bits of things. But
every animator I know has a mirror at their desk, and they're constantly performing their animation for themselves. You're getting so excited. There's rooms full of people doing this. And I just wanted to get a little.
And one of the shots out of Return of the King that I worked on was camera flying over Minas Tirith with the orc army lobbing fireballs across the parapets into the city and blowing things up. And some of it was model, some was digital. It's a mix. I had, you put in little clouds of things moving through. One of my colleagues, who was quite senior to me at the time, said, "Yeah, it's $100,000 shot." And I went, "What now?" And he said, "That's the shot that says you're worth being paid $100,000.
The question I get asked the most is that.
What was it like working at Industrial Light and Magic? And I should say that I was there from 1994 to 2006. I was there at a time where George would actually come in. We would see him. Let's just show you what it was like to be there. It was so much fun. We had a great time. We all felt like a little family while we were working on these films. That is the actual size of the plaza that you just saw going through with that shot. And these are the people that worked in the practical effects department in the model shop. In 2006, Industrial Light and Magic moved. For all the time that I was there before then, it was in a little strip mall in Marin County with a lot of car repair places, and you would never believe that the best visual effects on planet Earth were being done in this dilapidated set of buildings. There was no markings whatsoever. So this is what the place looks like now. That's the windows behind which now all the magic is taking place. That, my friends, is the Yoda fountain that's out in front of the building. If we ever get out of this pandemic and you can travel again and you go to San Francisco, this is part of the public part of the grounds. You can go sit and have your photograph taken under the Yoda fountain. I'm going to take you guys on a little romp through Industrial Light and Magic because the place is just filled with movie history. This is the actual Yoda puppet that Frank Oz used in Empire Strikes Back. And these are the actual Slimers. And if you look down below, this is before there was CGI. There's some pneumatics, there's some animatronic effects there. And here's a close-up of what Slimer looks like on the inside. Awesome to see so many Briarcliff classmates from 1973. This is really amazing. I want to read a little quote here. Bonnie Arnold, a veteran of all three of the biggest film animation companies, Disney, Pixar, and DreamWorks, has been described by Jeffrey Katzenberg as one of the most accomplished and prolific filmmakers working in feature animation today. We are so proud of you, Bonnie.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to be with you all today. And he said, well, would you like to come back tomorrow? Because it just so happens the director of that film with this company called Pixar is going to be here, John Lasseter, and maybe you'll meet him and see if there's something there. And sure enough, I came back the next day, met John Lasseter. We had this really long conversation. I kept saying, well, I really know nothing about animation. My background has really been in live action production. But he said, you know what, we all know about computers and animation, but a lot of us, we don't know how to make a film. So maybe you'll be that puzzle piece. The first thing they actually had me do was go to this convention in Chicago called SIGGRAPH, which is the biggest convention for people that work in that industry. And that's where I ran into you, Ed, after 20-something years or wherever it was. But I think that was the interesting thing about Toy Story is that no one had ever really done anything quite like that. There was never a feature that had been done in all computer animation, never a film that had been completely edited digitally on the Avid, which was just brand new to working in film. So there were a lot of firsts on that movie. And I think there were a lot of people with a lot of specialties. I knew a lot about features. Pixar knew a lot about computer animation. Disney knew a lot about traditional animation and the process. And again, everybody had a specialty. And I liken a lot of times to just looking at a dirt road and having a few paving stones. And every day we would sort of come in and say, okay, should we put the paving stone over here or should we put it over here? And then we would actually all take a step forward. And sometimes, you know, we had to kind of step back and adjust where we're going in terms of paving the way.
There's a bunch of applications for this, as you can imagine, which I think are at their best when it's educational or therapeutic or inspirational or something other than a cornball movie.
Training?
training, simulation.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's all kinds of natural markets for it, but none of those markets are necessarily very profitable. This is all modular, prefabricated. We built this in my workshop over at my office. And it's 2 foot by 4 foot modular units that bolt together. A small crew of people can assemble this pod in a couple of days.
What is important is that we celebrate the good things and the collaborations. Thank you, NCSA. Thank you for starting NCSA, Larry. And so now I'm just rambling. You know, in the early years, they used to call me the Vanna White of visualization. But now I'm just hoping to be the Betty White of visualization. You are my tribe. I love you all. And I do want to say that over here there's a table, and somewhere there's pens to sign stuff. And these are the original Access magazines that go back historically, and publications from 1988, and IMAX posters. If you want them, we'll sign them. Anyway, handouts we want you to take away, and I'm up for more photo ops. So thank you for coming. And thank you. Thank you. I'm so touched.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Ivan Sutherland. He was honored with the Turing Award in 1988. So join me in welcoming Professor Ivan Sutherland.
When I was asked to come to Utah to this occasion, I said, I don't want to say a word about graphics. I haven't done any for 35 years. But I would like to give a talk about the subject at which I'm now excited, a subject which very few people even know exists.
To the right is the famous sketchpad, which was the first time that people had got the notion that humans could have agency over the computer. They could actually change the design of pictures on a screen themselves. And everything that we're talking about today descends from that.
So he arranged for me to go out there. So I went to visit Disney. I had a great visit. I met Frank Thomas when I was out there, one of the 9 old men. And I learned that Disney Animation itself had no interest whatsoever in computer graphics. But they did want to hire me to work on the new Space Mountain building in Florida. I also learned that the only place that might conceivably fund computer animation in the world
didn't care.
They couldn't care at all. So that option was gone.
I grew up in Pasadena, California, and so I was lucky enough as an undergraduate to get a succession of summer jobs at JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab. This was even before Jim. The department had said several engineers would like to have you assist them. Why don't you go around to, and see, what you would like. The first guy that I went to was the highest ranking science person in the lab, in the imaging lab, Bob Nathan, and he said, you've been working with images coming from the lunar orbiter and so on, but what I think is interesting is if we take this technology to things that are on Earth, like biological images. This was in '69, and I went to one of my favorite professors, Bill McKeeman. I said, graphics is it. You could take things from images, you can make new images, you could analyze things. Fabulous.
Our next speaker is the very Jim Blinn.
At Utah is a kind of an ode to the frame buffer. Set to work putting together Bhutan Phom's lighting model, Ed Catmull's surface rendering model, and Martin Newell's models. The neat thing about the frame buffer is that it gave you immediate feedback, which they didn't have so much before then.
I didn't get a chance to meet and work with Phong. He is the one responsible for the name Bureau shading. I was, I had called it smooth shading, but he had to distinguish his shading from mine, and so he christened the name Goro shading.
Group of people down the hall that were David Evans and Ivan and everybody who were doing research. And Gordon Romney came into my office one day and he said, "Gee, John, how would you solve this problem of you have these computer objects and you want to, and they're in 3 dimensions, and you want to make a picture that gets rid of all the hidden lines, that if you just drew them all, they would all overlap and it would be terrible." And I thought about it and got to know David and Ivan and the people that were just down the hall. And I said, well, this shouldn't be this hard. And it turned out it really wasn't that hard.
I only got this story straightened out just yesterday. I met Ivan in a restaurant in London in the summer of '72. I remember we both turned up holding our portfolios of shaded images, and that must have been the biggest and most varied collection of shaded images on the planet at that time.
Doing it in the jungle, oh, doing it in Hollywood. Oh, darn. Oh. Digitize me!
Fred's no good, Jason. You're just gonna have to kill it.
Kill it? So I'm open to any suggestions.
Well, you're just gonna have to figure out what it wants. What is its motivation?
Fred? You don't want to die down here. Digitize me, Fred! I never go back to Georgia. Don't sell that either.
We have open dailies for the entire crew a couple of days a week, usually Monday and Friday. We go through the work and sort of critique it and then split apart and deal with the problems. Okay, fine. Yeah, great.
If
Hi, I'm Ed Kramer, and I was brought on to Stargate by Jeff Kleiser and Diana Walczak. On one side of the floor was Sylvester Stallone's studio, so we got to walk by a lot of props from Sylvester Stallone's movies. And then there was the Stargate production office. That tiny little sign was our production office. And in there, you could see we had a Horus helmet. This is Mark Pompian sitting at his desk. You can see all of the shots that were on the wall. He was going to be working on every one of those. And this is Robin, our production assistant. This is Mary Nelson. She and Eileen O'Neill were the compositors of a lot of these shots. And Jeff Oken, he was the visual effects supervisor. And Jeff has gone on to be visual effects supervisor on a number of feature films. And he also was one of the main driving forces in creating the Visual Effects Society. Jeff wrote and edited the Visual Effects Society handbook, which is used by every visual effects supervisor on every movie now. It's the industry standard. I was really lucky to be able to go down and visit the set. It was in the Spruce Goose Dome. The wooden plane that Howard Hughes had built had recently been moved out of it, so we were able to use that dome to build all the sets. And the sets were just gorgeous production design. You can see when you're on set, you can walk around back and see where all the props are located. These photographs were really critical in giving us footage that we could use in creating these shots. And here's some reference photos. I'm not sure if this is Jaimin Hansu or if this is a stand-in for him, but we needed a lot of reference footage. This is on set. That's the Stargate ring. Bob O'Haver is pretending like he's walking through the ring. We were on set to take measurements and to prep for those shots. This is Jeff Oken, of course, working with James Spader on set. It was interesting watching James Spader and Kurt Russell work. Their styles were totally different. Kurt Russell hit his mark exactly the same every single take. He delivered his lines exactly the same every single take. It sounded exactly sincere every single time in exactly the same way. Whereas James Spader, every take, he was trying something new. He was asking the director what his character would do. He was trying to figure out, well, what could I change from the script and make it a little more, his performance. So the two of them, every time they did a scene, Spader was always trying something new, and Russell was always giving the exact same performance. It was really amazing to watch.
Welcome to The Companion's Ed Kramer Secrets of CGI. I'm your host, Lawrence Cow, and today we have a special one. He has worked with George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and Michael Bay, amongst many others. He is a pioneer in VFX. He is an artiste with a mouse. He is a wizard of Hollywood. He is Ed Kramer! Woo! We've had multiple different episodes and interviews kind of recorded in the bank for your new podcast with us, CGI Fridays.
There's bins and bins of T-shirts from ILM Productions from the 12 years that I was there. I was there from 94 to 2006. So, or as I like to say, from Jumanji through Pirates 2. Because in this business, we don't think in terms of years. We measure events by what movie we were working on at the time.
Hi, I'm Adam Howard, and I animated all the phases in Star Trek Next Generation. So one day I was working on the shot, and this is a very quiet knock at the door. And Alan stuck his head in and he goes, "Hey, is it okay if I come in? I've got somebody I think you'd like to meet." And so they came in, and I sensed somebody sit down next to me. I have a feeling I should stop what I'm doing and pay attention to whoever it is that's sitting next to me. And I turned around, and it was George Harrison from the Beatles.
Oh my God.
That was probably the best experience I had on episode 1, was doing that, because it was an opportunity to work one-on-one with Dennis Muir. And there were times when he'd be at my desk operating the mouse and I'd be operating the keyboard just to get the right camera, the right position, and that was very special.
This side from the seam right here is plastic. That's high density plastic right there. It's like a whole hockey helmet. They took a 3D scan of my skull and printed this side. So like they did a mirror image, and this was inserted, I guess it's, what's this, 2022? So it's about 2 years that it's been in there, and I can sleep, I can tap on it. Yeah, it's medical miracle.
The U.S. Post Office decided to come up with a pane of stamps, of 10 stamps dedicated to the behind-the-scenes crafts of American filmmaking. So they had directing, screenwriting, costume designing, all of these 10 crafts. And they were looking for some iconic image for the special effects stamp. And ILM submitted a number of shots, they thought would be iconic for special effects shots. And the Post Office selected my sculpture of E.T. So here's a composite I did. The individual stamp comped onto the original photo of me sculpting E.T.
When I read about the flying cow, I thought, that's a cool shot.
He'd come off the set and go, "Can you guys insert them into this matte painting digitally?" And it was like, yeah, why not? Let's try it.
I could see that with this tool, you could literally make any movie that you could ever imagine making. It didn't matter how surrealistic or non-realistic or fantastical it was, you would be able to make a believable picture. And that was a nirvana of filmmaking creativity.
The director's vision is the thing that's really important, and in those early days, the CGI artist had to actually create the technology necessary to bring that vision to the silver screen.
So I kind of invented this sort of projection mapping algorithm by myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The first shot I got to animate on would have been the feather shot for the beginning of Forrest Gump. My job was to take the footage of the feather and manipulate it through frame.
After Jurassic, we know we can do creatures. So in Jumanji, I remember the request was, can we have like a couple hundred animals in one shot? I'm like, oh, sure.
Well, everybody knows the actors, right, from your favorite movie, but nobody knows the faces or the names of the people who actually did the CGI work for those scenes. And that's what we want to fix with this movie.
You look at the storyboard of the animatic and you're like, how am I going to approach this to make it look fantastic?
They painted the transparency maps. They painted the wetness maps. They painted the muscle maps. They painted all this stuff.
So I became like one of the leading industry experts in digital flesh rot, and that was my forte.
Harry Potter was not the exact beginning, but it was certainly set the tone for the industry moving forward.
Writing the shaders that would first emulate skin, then turn it into ash and have to wipe that off. And I was very proud of the name of the shader that I came up with to do the ash and the wipe. It was the ash wipe shader.
The T-1000, his Shakespearean flaw is revealed, that he's a show-off. And that's the difference between a good shot and a great one.
And we were having a lot of fun because we really knew we were doing something different, and it was fun to see it all happen.
I've reached a point in my life where I feel like it's really important to give back and inspire the next generation of CGI artists who are going to be out there making the next generation of movies.
This, to me, feeds into everything that I know and love about cinema, which is to bring something to the screen that you can't see in real life. The only way you can see it is by going to a movie.
Hi, well, I'm Richard Taylor, Richard Wynn Taylor II, because there are a lot of Richard Taylors.
You were not with him when it was Lee Harrison Associates. You were only with him at Computer Image.
Control Image at the time.
Okay.
Changed the name to Computer Image when it went public. Might have more appeal.
I heard that Tommy Smothers was very involved in the beginnings of Computer Image. Did he ever come to the facility? Did you meet him?
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah, he came around and we did some stuff. And he had an art director, Les Weisberg, that was with him. And I've even got a snapshot or Polaroid of myself and Tom at the same time.
My name is David Sieg.
Exactly, the Craig Reynolds action figures?
Yeah, I imagine that would be a big seller.
Towards the end, it grew to be much more complex, which is Argyle Sock, because Argyle Sock involves recursive algorithm, and that's when we really got serious into computer graphics in a way.
So Argyle Socks was your entry into this business?
Pretty much, yeah.
My name is Corey Rosen.
Ed, my name is Peter Dalton.
My name is Catherine Craig.
Greg McGuire.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm Bob Powell.
Wow, that's a long question because I moved around a lot, but and I have a long name. But my name is Habib Zargarpur.
My name is Tim Woody.
Well, I'm Doug Sutton.
My name is Laura Good, Killmaster.
On Jurassic World, and get this shot where the dinosaur tears through Margaritaville. Laura and I worked together destroying that building, and everything was destroyed in the building. I mean, way over the top, overkill. But it ended up, it was at night, so when they rendered it, you couldn't see anything.
Right after that was like Van Helsing, Harry Potter 3, Lemony Snicket, Episode 3, Star Wars, Ep 3.
I think I can handle that. Terrence Masson.
Now I look at all my classmates and they're all kind of the creative leadership at Pixar. But I was not in the traditional animation school. I was in the experimental animation department, which was kind of, in some ways, was in between live action and animation. So I did equal parts of both.
In broadcasting, we always called it FM, fucking magic.
And on those words, I will say thank you, Don.
I'm Larry Malone.
My name is Eric Krummery.
My name is Hilmar Koch.
Okay, Jim Hillen.
So my name is Indira Guerrieri.
It was such a great time to do what we were doing. I feel tremendously fortunate. That's overwhelmingly, like if you were to ask me for a one-word description of how I feel about my tenure at ILM during those years, it was fortunate. I think this project is great. So you kind of, you're stirring some stuff back to the surface that I really think is valuable.
Okay, well, I'm Tim Eaton.
Why do we have the sense that we're doing something illegal here? My name I can remember. Not much else. No, my name's Art Durinsky. I've been trying to remember things, but I hadn't been preparing for these questions. Yes, I'm Gary Demos.
I'm Debbie Diaz.
Well, you got a lot of information from the thing I sent you.
I do, and also from Wikipedia, and also from your personal webpage. So that's the story. But what I'm looking for is kind of the backstory. Now, what kind of early influences, were there TV shows, books, comics, that kind of led you down a path into making pictures with computers?
Okay, well, that is going way back.
I am Paul Churchill.
Take it away, Kim Bromley.
Here we go. Well, I'm a theater geek.
Okay, so my name's John Burton, often known as John Andrew Burton Jr.
Okay, so my name is Suzanne Berger.
My name is Lee Barbier.
I am Leah Anton, and I was a lightning goddess.
A lot of research for this book, and I was in search of the first pixels, and I found them here. This is what was on baby's screen, and Pixar was scrolling. The word Pixar was scrolling. So the first computer had the first pixels and animated. Had the first graphics. These are the actual first pixels on baby. Somebody stopped and took pictures in 1947. Actually, Then I found the first video game, and then the second video game.
So my whole drive in making movies is how to get even further along that road of a first-person experience to where the audience gets a chance to feel much more immersed in what's going on and much more personally involved in what's going on.
At 120 frame 4K 3D. And it's completely wild. Everybody who sees it said this is the most amazing experience I've ever had. And it looks fully cinematic, and it's immersive, and it's better than VR, and it looks totally real, and it's very powerful. It's got 32 channels of digital sound and this extremely wide screen, a hemispheric screen that's halfway between a flat screen and a planetarium. And I'm really proud of it, but I haven't gotten any traction getting investors or anybody interested in doing this.
When one looks at your life story, it is filled with all of these things that are such great ideas. You just want someone to say, let's do these things. Let's make these things. My God, let's go into the future with Doug Trumbull.
It's just not happening. So I'm really very upset and disappointed and kind of disillusioned that that hasn't happened. And I thought, well, I've won some Academy Awards and I've done some good work, worked on some great movies.
When is the time going to catch up with Doug Trumbull? So on behalf of the future that has already happened, I apologize.
Hello, my name is Donna Cox. I'm so happy to be here for the Pioneers Talk. I am the director of the Advanced Visualization Lab at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications. I just want to thank you, Ed Kramer, and the SIGGRAPH Pioneers Committee. Many thanks to Pat Hanrahan, who introduced me to computer graphics. Pat also encouraged me to attend SIGGRAPH, and my first SIGGRAPH was 1984. Today, I'll share a lot of historical photos, including those of other SIGGRAPH pioneers. Many of these photos are taken from a recent book that I co-edited called New Media Futures: The Rise of Women in the Digital Arts.
Every term when I teach lighting materials in Maya, I ask my students, why do you think that shader is called the blend shader, and why do you think that noise function is called the Perlin noise function? And then I show them a picture I took of Jim Blend and Ken at a Pioneers gathering a few years ago, and I tell them, these are real people, and they're still alive and kicking. So Ken Perlin is a professor of computer science at NYU and directs the Future Reality Lab.
Let's talk about what would I want as a kid if I were a kid in the future? Because we're talking about the world that's going to be presented to little kids. So once we go into this age where we're in a mixed reality that we take for granted and we don't think about it anymore, and everything is computationally enhanced in a seamless way, if you look at this scene of these little kids talking, they're gesturing, they're looking with their eyes, they have facial expressions, they're gesturing with their hands. They will start to evolve language that where when I gesture, stuff happens.
I used to run on electricity. I wanted to be an electrical engineer, and that led me to Lehigh, which led me to Michigan, which led me to taking a computer systems modeling course and a computer graphics course from Burr Herzog, which changed my life. And then Andy's story.
I started at Swarthmore College, and I was going to be a physics major. Nuclear fusion was what I was most interested in. And I found modern engineering, electronics, and I was in that transition phase when we went from vacuum tubes, about that big, to discrete transistors that you bought out of a book. Never heard of digital computers during my years.
Let's set the Wayback Machine to 1972. That's a half a century. A half a century before that, the first radio broadcast was made.
So I'm going to talk about trackers and head mounts. The first tracker, what we all refer to as the antlers, had a light on the end of each of those 4 spikes.
In 1968, Lee and his associates built Scanimate. In 1972, Lee won a national Emmy for the development of Scanimate. He says it's difficult to watch television without seeing something produced on one of the world's 8 Scanimate machines.
People would certainly recognize probably the Pepto-Bismol commercial.
Pepto-Bismol. Indigestion. In 1969, Lee and his team of video engineers designed Caesar. The future? A new computer animation machine called System 4. But for all this wondrous equipment and new technology, Lee claims we've only just begun to understand the potential of computer animation.
You try to imagine what the world would be like if all of a sudden today, all of us for the first time were given vocal cords to speak with so that we could communicate this way. Well, I think we are in the process of being given some servant of the visual imagination that will allow us to communicate in a very marvelous and exciting way.
Gives me an extraordinary amount of pleasure, thank you, to introduce some of the most amazing pioneers in the history of computer animation who are here with us tonight. Mary Lou Harrison, her children Paul and Rabbit Harrison, their grandson Sam, Joe and Donna Santastaven, Gary Teichman. Please rise and give these guys a round of applause. Okay. Oh, and I wanted to show you guys this. We can bring the house lights back up. I still have this. This is a cardboard model of the Scanimate that came from Computer Image. It's been on my desk for years. So this is what the Scanimate looked like, a little bit bigger than this though. So thank you, you wonderful, wonderful people. I'm so glad you were able to join us.
There's the whole tree of digital computer graphics, and there's this one lone branch from a long time ago that was analog computer graphics. So what we have gathered here today is some of the original animators and artists working with analogs back in the late 60s to the early 1980s.
I'm Susan Krause, and I started at Computer Image in 1980.
Fred Kessler. I worked at Dolphins. I was there for 4 years, from end of 75 to the end of 79.
Well, hi, I'm Roy Weinstock. I started at Computer Image in 1973. It was just a dream job for me. I started off as a tape operator, and I couldn't tear myself away from the Scanimate.
It's been a long time since I've seen Fred and Susan, seen Ed recently, Roy recently.
We have some amazing guests here to talk about Chasing Pixels, the pioneering computer graphics processors.
Thanks for attending our discussion on the pioneers of pixel graphics and processors and systems.
Thank you, John. There's actually a series of graphics cards that we did, and one led to another that led to another.
Nick England and Mary Witten are with us tonight.
So my first programmable graphics processor was using something called an Adage AGT30 in the lab at North Carolina State. It's those 4 racks that are in the background of this photo.
This was my master's thesis project at NC State, and I developed a patch subdivision algorithm for it. I suspect it ran enough to get the pictures from my thesis, but that may be all.
So this is anti-alias ray tracing. It was done entirely within this graphics processor, which was designed in 1979. And it ran about something like 100 times faster than anybody else's computer at the time.
Thank you for the introduction, John. I just loved our Icona systems. From the first day that Fred Brooks and I visited Nick and Mary's house, we walked out, and I remember we weren't sure they were going to really do a company.
I'm Steve Molnar. I was a graduate student at UNC Chapel Hill. I looked at different research groups when I came and immediately decided that I wanted to be part of this Pixel Planes group. Had just built this huge machine and taken it to SIGGRAPH.
This is the current prototype of the Pixel Planes graphics system at the Microelectronic Systems Laboratory of UNC Chapel Hill's Department of Computer Science. The system rapidly generates realistic, smooth-shaded images of three-dimensional objects and scenes.
And this was 7,381 chrome reflective spheres with 3 light sources. And when Eric was rendering it on his workstations, it was taking between 4 and 5 hours, and we were doing it in 16 seconds.
Today, for less than the cost of a typical workstation, you can extend your graphics power several orders of magnitude with the supercomputing capabilities of the Pixel machine.
What did you use to create all those images? And he said, we just used your ray tracing library. I'm like, no, really, my library can't do that. Really, what did you use? And it was literally just the ray tracing library, and I was completely blown away. So as I mentioned, there were alternate uses for Pixel machines. One of the things that turned out is it made a really good pizza oven. If you were ray tracing with 820 megaflops of processors in there, it got really, really hot.
I think it came with a BTU rating.
Let us introduce Bill Joel and take it away, good doctor.
Thank you very much, Ed. Yes, this is the Pioneers of CGI Education. 3 of our panelists are recipients of the SIGGRAPH Distinguished Educator Award, and that would be Barbara Mons, Don Greenberg, and Ed Angel. And we also have a former and current chair of the SIGGRAPH Education Committee, and that'd be Scott Owen and Glenn Goldman.
Thank you for having me on this panel. I'm a teaching professor at the University of Washington. I came from industry. I came from Industrial Light and Magic.
I'm Glenn Goldman. I am an architect and a designer. It's interesting, actually, given the demographics of SIGGRAPH, that it looks like a third of the people on the panel here are architects.
Yeah, I'm an Angel. I'm here in New Mexico. I was at Caltech, and then I did graduate work at USC. I started off with Newman and Sproul, and then Foley and Van Dam. And a lot of schools were starting to have computer graphics course. It wasn't just the high-end research-oriented places. The students wanted it. They had seen Tron.
Scott Owen.
Thank you, Bill. My bachelor's and PhD degrees were actually both in chemistry. In 1977, I got an Apple II. And all of a sudden I had this machine, this little machine that I could program interactive graphics on. Started using that for chemical education.
Another distinguished educator from SIGGRAPH, Don Greenberg.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for allowing us to talk about this. I'm going back to my high school senior year when I was 17 years old, and I loved to draw. And I was somewhat skilled in math. And anybody that liked art and math, the guidance counselor said I should apply to architecture school.
This is the 5th panel that we've done. We have a panel called The Pioneers of Analog Animation. We've done a panel called Chasing Pixels, the Pioneering graphics processors. We've done a panel on the pioneers of digital art and animation, along with the digital arts community of SIGGRAPH. And we did a panel on the pioneers of CGI education. If you want to see any of these, they're all available online. All you have to do is Google SIGGRAPH Pioneers, and that will take you to our page on the SIGGRAPH website. And on that page, there is a online contents link, and that'll give you the links to all of the things we've done. We've done, in addition to those panels, we've done interviews with former chairs of the SIGGRAPH conference. We've done a number of those. We've done interviews with a lot of pretty amazing people. Those interviews are available there. And so there's a lot of things that we've done as computer graphics pioneers. Our moderator for the panel is our own Dr. Bill Joel.
Thank you very much, Ed. Everybody else who's probably listening in as an attendee, we have all heard about generative AI, and oh my God.
I'm Dan Goldman. I see a lot of familiar names in the audience. Hi, Dad. About a year and a half ago, I switched into a new division in Google Labs that is focused on generative media, about which I can say very little. Actually, including the things I have said are my opinion, mine only. They have nothing to do with my employer.
I'm Rebecca Perry, got my PhD in the history of technology, and I taught for a while at the University of Virginia and other schools. I'm currently working on a research project with an MIT researcher. We're studying people's interactions with ChatGPT and other AI chat programs.
My name is Blake Schurz. I'm currently working at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. I'm a software engineer and architect for 20 plus years. The last 8 years or so, I have been specializing in augmented and virtual reality applications thereof, non-entertainment applications specifically.
I'm David Spolstra. I'm unemployed. Actually, I'm retired. I'm playing in AI every single day. I've served in the C-suites in both startups and Fortune 500s, co-founder of a startup called True Vision, which made the target boards. I'm really concerned about deep fake technology and generative AI, especially with the elections coming up.
So welcome to the panel on computer graphics and aerospace. This Kazakh guy is somebody who's been screwing around with computer graphics for longer than I care to admit. Boeing Senior Technical Fellow, ACM Fellow, all this stuff. I'm the late Bob Ellis, longtime SIGGRAPH member, who succeeded in not only working at Washington University in St. Louis, but also for the Boeing Company and Sun Microsystems, and has been another curmudgeon in the computer graphics space. He suggested the idea, and I got volunteered to organize it.
So to all of you that are listening in, thanks for joining the panel. I'm Pete Donges with 33 years in real-time visual simulation.
My background is in physics and astrophysics. I began using computer graphics as a student at MIT in 1968. More recently, I worked with a group at NASA Houston. We called it Sensing Deep Space Pandora's Cluster. So we worked with Carol Christian at the Hubble Space Telescope Institute. We got a lot of secret Hubble data.
Julian?
So I'm focusing more on the early days of visualization at NASA. Of course, the Jet Propulsion Lab is a fairly intense environment, of course, being basically apprenticed to Jim Blinn. I wanted to mention that my dad worked at NASA for 25 years and went from NACA to NASA during his time period. He worked on Apollo and the original shuttle stuff. I have his service pins somewhere out in the garage.
Vladimir.
Hey, everyone. I'll try to summarize. A lot of people said a lot of things that we already covered from Boeing perspective, so you did the good thing for me. I sit where Dave used to sit at Boeing. I'm a fellow at Boeing. I'm in 35 years of aerospace, and let's say 30 years of visualization all over the world. If you ever touched the analog computer, well, Boeing was doing it in the 40s.
So my name is Tom DeFonte.
Bob Ellis is the name.
My name is Adele Newton.
My name is Mike Bailey.
I'm Maxine Brown.
My name is Mark Resch.
Well, my name is John Fuji.
My name is Scott Owen. Actually, Gene Scott Owen is my full name.
My name is Warren Wagensback.
My name, Alan with a Y, Rockwood.
Hi, my name's Joe Marks.
My name is Ronan Barzel, which is an Israeli name which I don't pronounce properly.
So my name is Terrence Masson.
I'm Rebecca Strelick.
My name is MK Haley.
I'm Dave Schreiner.
My name is Mark Barr.
My name is Mona Castra.
My name is Christy Prawn.
I'm Joan Collins. I am a producer of all media content, heavy real time for the last 40 years. So on the threshold, we had 17 vignettes that happened, including we also brought in the real-time laser animation too. I'm sure we can put up links to several of the reels. I think you have it on your channel, Ed.
To be chatting with one of the people who was there at the beginnings of SIGGRAPH is kind of special.
SIGGRAPH started as what was a special interest committee at the time, back in the mid-'60s. Andy Van Dam and Sam Matza organized it, put it together. At that time, it was a special interest committee on computer graphics.
My name is John Petty. If you're doing it for scientific engineering and so forth work, then a big bulkier headset, something like Microsoft's HoloLens, for example, that's going to be acceptable. And so that machine can get pretty good high dynamic range in a variety of environments. So lots of great problems out there. I mean, if you were advising a group of undergrad students for a career path through to a PhD, the two places I would point them is bioengineering and augmented reality. That's where our future is.
My name's Bob Stone, Professor Bob Stone. I have a chair in extended reality at the University of Birmingham, UK. I'm very influenced by science fiction, particularly science fiction series movies, which of course were with your background, and science fiction TV series. So everything I've done has almost been driven by an insatiable need to be involved in science fiction. Interactive devices, yes, definitely we need someone to crack the haptics issue. There's some very expensive, very flimsy looking, very unwearable items on the web at the moment. They don't really deliver the kind of tactile resolution that the human hand needs to engage in surgery, for example.
I'm Darcy Gerbarg, an artist who straddles two worlds, the art world and the computer world. My work is a record of my use of digital technology for making art as the technology is developed. I'm fascinated by visual complexity that incorporates real and virtual objects. I work digitally much the same way as I used to work in acrylic on large canvases, one color, one brushstroke at a time. I paint in a fully immersive, three-dimensional virtual world.
First of all, should I call you Michael?
Whatever you want.
Well, I don't want to call you Ed.
Answer to Mike, Michael,
Mike. Okay.
Professor, Doctor, Troublemaker, hey you, a bunch of things.
What does the A stand for?
Nothing. Anonymous, later 60s, second half of the 60s. All right. And that was the result of the four-dimensional hypercube work. In essence, taking a four-dimensional object, four spatial dimensions, not time, four spatial, projecting that to three dimensions in 3D stereo, and then sometimes just a 2D version of that. And that was the hypercube turning inside out and doing its wild gyrations. And then the idea occurred to me to put words rather than an object. And that became words now. And those words would be 4D to 3D to 2D. And the words would be tumbling around themselves and sometimes close in on themselves and contort and do almost impossible things.
My name is Nina Sobel. It's the 1974 brainwave drawings in LA where I used a PDP-11 computer, which was part of the neuropsychology lab in the Sepulveda Veterans Administration Hospital. And the PDP-11 computer read the EEGs of two people. There's a circle being formed, and that's the output of both people's brainwaves at the same time. It's extraordinary. And it hasn't been investigated since then.
What have we done in the past year? Anyone who was here last year for the 50th anniversary celebration, we compiled a reel of every pioneers who wanted to, old videos of your early research. And we put together a reel that's 4 hours long. And it was playing in the time tunnel room last year at the conference.
In any case, Ed, thank you for putting this together. It's great to see everybody, and it's fantastic to have a chance to kind of celebrate in between the SIGGRAPHs, some of the pioneers and the pioneering work, and get a chance to just socialize. It's great to see everybody. Cheers, folks.
Cheers.
I think we should toast to Mr. Kramer there becoming the fearless leader for another 3-year term. Thank you for doing that.
Here.
Well, no, I really enjoy this. I mean, there can be no greater group of people on the face of the planet. So, I mean, geez, what an honor and a privilege it is to be able to put stuff together and keep this group kind of going.